Hi, this is Stan Bush.
Hi, this is Stephanie Calvert.
This is John Payne.
This is Jack Hughes.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stevens.
Hey everybody, this is Prescott Niles.
Hello, I'm Kofi Baker.
This is Tony Franklin here.
This is Britt Lightning from Vixen,
and you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
Keep rocking with Joe.
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K., and today, our guest is Bobbie Brown, the author of Dirty Rocker Boys. Dirty Rocker Boys details the chaotic experiences that Bobbie survived during her time in Hollywood in the 1990s. Back in those days, she worked primarily as a model and actress, and she is perhaps most well known for her appearance in the iconic music video for Cherry Pie by the band Warrant. Part of the reason that video is such a big deal is because Bobbie married the lead singer of that band, Janie Lane. They later divorced, and she was then romantically linked to several other high-profile rock stars and celebrities, which she details in the book. She also survived a pretty serious drug addiction during those years, so this book is full of some absolutely wild stories involving Hollywood parties, celebrities, sex, drugs, booze, music, gossip, drama, total debauchery. She's seen it all, and she talks about it all in this book, and she does so in a particularly funny manner. She pulls no punches, not even from herself, so if you're interested in the real-life story of someone who's been a part of the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, but has also seen its seedy underbelly, you'll want to start right here. In the interview you're about to hear, we discuss how she wrote the book, how it was received when she first released it in 2013, and how she has since helped other women in the industry take steps to share their own stories. We then talk about some of her appearances on various TV shows like Married with Children, and she even talks about what it was like hosting an infomercial. Finally, we wrap up with a frank and candid conversation about her recent work as a stand-up comedian. She's only been doing stand-up for a few years now, but if you've read the book, it makes sense, because she has a wicked sense of humor. And if you are interested in seeing her perform, she has a few comedy dates coming up. First is on April 29th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center in Palm Springs, California, as part of the Lip Sync for a Cure benefit show, which is raising money for the American Cancer Society. Bobbie is very passionate about doing charity work, so if this is in your neck of the woods, please consider buying a ticket because it will help raise money for a good cause. Otherwise, you can also see her perform at the Lunchbox Comedy Festival at the Cabin and Courtyard in Gonzales, Louisiana on May 27th. She is performing as part of the Ladies of Lunchbox Showcase, which starts at 3:30. The event is a full day of comedy, so if you like to laugh, be sure to check that out. And if you're interested in learning more about Dirty Rocker Boys, you can find copies of both of her books on Amazon. So with that, here's my interview with the author of Dirty Rocker Boys, Bobbie Brown. I want to start on a bit of a somber note, but something that I think is very important is that first I wanted to offer my belated condolences to you about your friend Tawny Kitane. And I remember seeing on your YouTube channel that you posted some, great videos with her, some heartfelt conversations. You guys talked about funny stuff, but also some very heavy stuff. And I think she was a very special person. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your friendship with her and what she was like with you.
This is so crazy because for so many years, people kept referring to us in the same genre, right? And we had never met. And it wasn't until we both got hired to host M3 that we finally met. Like, I written about her in my book. everybody, had referenced us for both, like, video girls who ended up marrying the person they do the video with. But literally decades had passed before we actually met. And then when we finally did meet, we kind of like just hit it off right away. And she was so cool and so sweet and so goofy, just like, I feel like I'm an 18-year-old boy in a female body, like she was like cool like that. And I don't know, I feel like she was kind of misunderstood a lot, or I don't know, but she was just like, she was a grown woman, but like had like the heart of a tender, young, sweet girl. Does that make sense? Like she was so sweet. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah. That seemed to definitely come through on her YouTube channel. I watched a lot of her videos that she produced and seemed like a very cool person. I heard she was in the process of writing a book, so I wondered, did she ever talk to you about your experience writing a book?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I actually helped her with meetings, forwarded her some info, and yeah, she did. She did ask me about that, so we talked about that, and I helped her as much as I could with trying to get that established. Yeah, so I didn't know that if it ever went through or not, but yeah, I'm always paying it forward. Like anybody ever needs my help, I'm like, yeah, of course,
Someone that was a guest on this show back in 2021 was Carrie Stevens. She came on the show to talk about her book, Unrated, and I asked her if there were books that she had read that either inspired her to write her own story or sort of influenced her and, gave her guidance on how to tell her story. And like right away, she mentioned both of your books.
Bobbie Brown is a good friend of mine. She wrote Cherry on Top and Dirty Rocker Boys. So, of course, hers is very different than mine, too, because it's like, she went down more of like, the drug, wild Tommy Lee, like a wilder kind of path. And hers is great and very entertaining, but again, like very different than mine.
And she said that she spoke very highly of them. So did she reach out to you at any point? I mean, it sounds like you two were friends.
Yeah, she did actually, and I tried to help her the best I could, or how I knew how. And yeah, I helped her however I could, and I read her book, and it was awesome. And I gave her advice and tried to, get her signed here or there. It didn't go that well with the meeting for the book company, but it turns out that book company was shady anyway. I never got paid for my second book anyway, so she didn't miss out. She didn't miss out with not going with them. So yeah.
Gotcha. So has that been a recurring experience? Have there been other authors who have read your book and gotten in touch with you to tell you that, you inspired them, or, asked for advice? What has sort of the feedback been from people who want to put their own story to a book?
I have a lot of people that have asked me how to go about it. And I literally didn't know how to go about it until I kind of tried and failed. And then I got to meet a ghostwriter, Caroline, who ended up ghostwriting my book, and kind of knew how to go about it, which you need like an 11-page synopsis. And the good part about having a ghostwriter is people are like, oh, you should just write it yourself. The funny thing is you don't really know what kind of questions to ask yourself, and you don't know what people want to know about you. Like, it's hard to kind of interview yourself in a way that comes off. Am I saying this right? Like, there are many things that she asked me that I never would have thought, oh yeah, people might want to know this. Or so we kind of played really well off of each other. Like, I met two other ones, and she was the one who immediately got my sense of humor, my perspective, my because I wanted the book to seem like a conversation I was having with a friend, right?
Yeah.
And an honest conversation that I was having with a friend, that it seemed like you could pick up the book and be like, you would get my sense of humor, or how I may have, how my personality, or so she really got me. And it's kind of good to have, because it's really hard to be self-aware and so,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, in certain situations. So it was kind of good to have her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. When you were first starting off with Dirty Rocker Boys, were there other books or authors or, any sort of written works that, either gave you the idea that you should tell your own story or shaped how you wanted to tell your story?
Well, I had, my name had been mentioned and I had been included in like 13 different rock memoirs. And I remember researching those and then reading some and going like, that's bullshit, or that's not how that happened at all. And I found that a lot of the stories that I was reading was very, it was like lacking truth. It wasn't honest. It kind of like came off like, oh, this is what, we think we should sound like, kind of. And I wanted it to be so self-deprecating and so truly honest that I made it a point to be like, I feel like there needs to be a book written from a female at that time that's, truly honest, and from a female perspective at that time that isn't going to, sugarcoat it. It's going to just be real, And I felt like it was important to have that because it was always coming from a one-sided type of rock star brain type of vibe.
It's like myth making, right? Legend building. They're trying to build up their own legend. That's
right. And I definitely was not down like that. I'm like, you know what? I need to go in, totally honest. But that's just who I am anyways. Like there's no way I could build some story and be like, oh, I'm so this, because I'm just not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I thought it was really good, and she did a great job, and I was really happy with it. And I combed through every single chapter with such meticulousness. Like I didn't say it like that, or I said it at this time and off. Like I was so involved in every bit of the process.
That's awesome. I gotta ask, of all of those previous books that had mentioned you in some, unflattering way, who was the worst offender?
I was never really offended.
Okay.
I was never offended, like...
Well, who was wrong the most?
I feel like they kind of all were, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like they kind of all were. Because they were coming from it from a perspective that you said that was kind of like legacy building or rock star promoting, and I just remember going, that's pretty vague, or not being mentioned at all, like and that's okay too. I never really get offended though.
Sure. Yeah.
Even when I could get offended, I usually don't.
Okay. Well, let's go back to when Dirty Rocker Boys was first released. That was 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And I wonder, do you remember what the initial reaction was from fans, from the press, from your peers, your social group? What was what do you remember about the immediate initial response to the book getting out there?
A lot of people that I know had a lot of fear about me releasing the book, because if anybody knows me, they know that I tell too much of the truth. Like I'm very forthcoming with the story. And I think that a lot of people were a little scared thinking, oh, what is she gonna reveal? But I felt like, I wasn't trying to throw anybody under a bus. I wasn't trying to ruin relationships. I wasn't trying to ruin, anyone's persona or whatever. I was just being honest with my end of it without over telling it too, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't tell, obviously. But I didn't want it to be like a slam book. It was a truth, and it was well received, I think.
Yeah. Was there any negative response? Was there any backlash? Was there any, she's just trying to cash in, or she's just trying to do X and Y,
No, there's literally nothing to cash in on.
Yeah.
that wasn't my own story.
Yeah.
So, and no, I didn't get a lot of backlash. I did get a little this and that, like, oh, I remember Athena's brother, she called me and said that he called her and said he was going to serve me with papers. I'm like, for what? Telling the truth? Like, okay. And that was one thing that they clarified. The lawyer for Simon Schuster said, as long as you're telling the truth in every circumstance, and it's not hearsay, nobody can serve you with any type of paperwork. And nobody ever has, and they couldn't, because there was nothing that was not true,
Okay. I guess the other side of the question would be, do you know, was anybody just mad? Anyone in your world that just was really resentful that you put truthfulness that maybe they didn't want out there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like there was like a couple of people that I mentioned in the book that wasn't happy that they were mentioned. And I totally get that. Like, I get that if somebody were to write something about me in a personal fashion, I might be offended too. But then again, if it was the truth, what could I do?
Sure.
Yeah. So like I said, I try not to cross the line with too much. I'm not trying to hurt people.
Yeah. And I'm reading the book, I don't get the vibe that you're trying to, tear anyone's reputation down or anything like that. I just wonder, this is sort of an overall theme because, 2013 isn't that long ago, but it does sort of predate, for lack of a better term, the hashtag Me Too era. And that really shifted how we as a culture talk about particularly women's stories. And I just wonder if you noticed any difference from how people reacted to you telling your story unapologetically, back in 2013 versus readers who maybe find the book now.
No, I still get the same. I never get like a negative response. I'll always have, this hater, that hater, everywhere, a hater. There's always going to be one of those, but I would say 98%, 98.99% of the time, it's always a positive, like, a good review.
Yeah. And the book has definitely had some staying power. I mean, you're still hearing from people who are discovering it and then, getting a second book, and, that feedback is ongoing, right?
Yeah.
A great deal of Dirty Rocker Boys is when, you're in your 20s and 30s. When you think of particularly women who are at that same age, grabbing this book now, what do you think are some of the biggest lessons that they could learn from reading your story?
That moving to Hollywood, like, oh, she's living the dream. It really could be. You never know. To stick with people you trust. The industry is a lot more sinister than people like to, say or
That's
think.
key.
And God knows I shouldn't be sitting here right now, And I really think that for anyone to go into moving to Hollywood to, live the dream, it's not something that I would say, yeah, go for it. It's so easy. Yeah, it's not like that. It's hard. It's a hard lesson to live. But if anybody said, I want to send my kid out there today, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, don't let him out of your sight.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that you use the word sinister, because that is definitely the feeling that I got from the book, just about that scene and that industry sort of again and again. And, it's definitely a story of survival. And I think, one thing that newer readers could take away from the book too is that they can tell their own story. you know, and they can tell it in a funny, self-deprecating way too. I read a lot of rock and roll and music-related memoirs and biographies, and this is one of the funniest ones I've ever read. You know?
Really?
Yeah, because it's like you said earlier, you designed it to like be like you're having a conversation with somebody. That's how it felt. You know, a lot of bios are that myth-making stuff, and honestly, that kind of gets old.
Yeah, I feel that, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to seem like, just like I said, very conversational. Like you could say anything to me, and I would answer you like I would in a normal conversation, and for you to walk away from it going like, yeah, okay, like I feel like I get her. She seems chill and honest and cool and forthcoming with the truth, and yeah, it was an enjoyable read, and it's also, you know, kind of like a tale. What is it? A poster child of what not to do.
Yeah. That's great. So I don't really think we need to dive into all of the various stories that are in the book, because you've talked about so many of these things at length, and I know you get asked a bunch of stuff, again and again. But one point that's in the book that I definitely got to highlight, because I think it's one of the more insightful moments, was the very last page of Dirty Rocker Boys. You share the story of your last encounter with Pam Anderson, who throughout the book plays sort of this like adversarial arch nemesis role, even though like this is a very real story, it's not fiction. And the line you use is that you say it's not a competition anymore, and you were like done with the feud and you just were over it, right? And I only bring this up because she's back in the headlines with her new Netflix show, and that's sort of inspiring a lot of conflicting emotions, because people are looking at her in a different way, in a positive light. Like, a lot of her stories kind of been taken by other people, but at the same note, the new series is a little bit of a kind of a PR thing, because it skips over maybe some bad behavior on her end. So I wonder if you've seen it, and if your thoughts and feelings about her since you published this book have changed in any way.
I have seen it. And I just walked away from it going, well, good for her. Right? Like, good for her. And I also felt a little bit kind of like you, like there's some stuff that's obviously not really being touched on here.
Yep.
And it's not really my business to state one way or the other, but good for her. It can't be easy. You know what I mean? It can't be easy. And I don't regret how everything worked out. And I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff we'll never know, which is also probably good for the spirit.
Yeah.
And and I honestly just wish her well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Thanks for walking with me on some of those heavier topics. Now I want to ask you about some light, fun stuff. I wonder if you have some fun memories of one of my favorite shows ever. Maybe my favorite sitcom ever is Married with Children. And you're featured in a couple of episodes, and I remember those episodes. The one when they're in they're using the grocery store for the free air conditioning. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Please tell me anything and everything about working on that show. I'm here for it all.
They were great. They were great, and I was actually in a scene with Pam for before they hired me for that one. And one of his dream montages, and I was one of the girls, me and Pam and two other girls, where we're rubbing his leg. It was brief.
Well, what's on the menu?
Massage? Whipped cream bath?
And they called me back my name was Nibbles. They called me back to be Nibbles because they really liked me the first time.
Miss, excuse me, I think you dropped something.
Thank you, Market Dweller.
I remember we shot that for like 3 days, and it was a 2-part series, but everyone was so darn cool. Like, everyone was so cool. It was so great. I remember like rehearsing my one-liner over and over, like 85 different ways. And you get to a point where you're not even talking normal. You're like, hi, hello. Like, so many, just be normal, weirdo. Right. But I wasn't really known for being an actress. I was more of known for being a model. So to me, that was like hard work,
Yeah.
But everyone was so great on that set and couldn't have been more, kind.
Oh, that's good to hear. I imagine you must have been cracking each other up, all through that too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They were awesome. And, cool like lessons and learning, coming around in that time and being on shows and doing this, doing that. It was very cool. They were very cool.
That's good to hear. Did you know that Katie Seagal had a music career?
I did. I actually went to go see her perform. One of those days we were in makeup, she told me she was performing at this club, and I went to go see her, and she was absolutely fantastic. Like, she had a voice, like, it's just such a soulful, like a Janis Joplin-y type of, like, very cool. Yeah, she was awesome.
That's so good to hear. I saw her in concert, actually, come to think of it, probably right around the time you released this book. She was with the Sons of Anarchy cast, but she was doing like a musical show. And I did an earlier episode of the podcast was just a deep dive in her music career because, the music there is how she got into showbiz, and there's just a lot of good stuff that people just don't know about. How about, did you get a chance to have any conversations with Christina Applegate? You and her must have had some sort of shared experiences of sort of being this, if you don't mind me saying, like a sex symbol, honestly, for that era. And Christina Applegate, is famous for that being on that show. The audience would get out of hand when she would come on the set. And I just wonder if were there conversations that you ever had with her about that kind of thing?
She was a little standoffish for the first couple times. She was probably one of the last people to kind of warm up to me at all. And I don't know if it was because it was a competitive, I don't know. I was so new to it anyways. And towards the last episode of us filming, she told me the story about Sebastian Bach or something. And I was like, what? Oh my God. And then I told her something, and I don't want to say anything because I'm really good friends with his wife right now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, but she mentioned some stuff and I was like, oh my gosh. And we had like some funny, so she was kind of like hit up by rock people too, because that was kind of her character on that show. So she was just like an actress and a model that was kind of like hit on by rock people too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So she told me a couple of stories and I was like, yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah, some shared experiences there. I hear you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Did you do a lot of like sitcom or TV appearances in that run? I mean, is that your favorite when you look back on that time?
I don't know. I did so much TV and movies back then. But it was all within that kind of that time space, like up to 2000, from 1990 to 2002 kind of. And then I kind of dropped off and then came onto the reality show thing with Ex-Wives Rock. But yeah, I was on a lot of TV shows actually. Like I remember I played one, Stacy Keach had like some detective show. I can't even think of it now. But I remember it was like my first serious role where I played like a murderer. And and I was like sassy and shitty and ended up dying at the end. Like Stacy Keach ended up killing me. We get into this gunfight, and it was like, I even watch it now, and the death was like the dumbest, stupidest, like fakest, weirdest death to watch someone try to fake.
No, I've got to go, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm going to my mother's. She's sick.
It runs in the family.
Well, I've got a cure for you.
And like 30 years passed. I put it on like a month ago and I was like, oh my gosh, still so cringy to watch. I'm like, oh yeah. I was so nervous about that first serious role. Because normally I did like, sitcoms.
Yeah, right.
The death scene is just like, wow. It's so hard to watch. It's so goofy.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so I've got one more like really oddball topic, and I just wonder if you've ever even been asked about this. On a previous podcast I had a conversation with my buddy about, when I grew up I didn't have cable, and when I was a teenager and I was kind of discovering music, one of the weirdest ways that like I discovered bands was I would watch late night Time Life infomercials, and these little clips of songs would be interesting, and I'd be like, oh, I got to write that down and see if I can, find a CD by that band or whatever. And, it's kind of silly because those are all gone now. But I saw that you hosted one called Big Rock, the 80s Generation.
Your host for Big Rock is a legendary video vixen who started some of the hottest rock videos ever. She's the ultimate insider with a scoop on your favorite rockers. Here to take you on a musical thrill ride through the rockin' 80s, the one and only Bobbie Brown.
Wow, what an introduction. I feel honored just to be here rocking through a collection that is the buzz of the industry.
So one, have you ever been asked about this?
Not in a really, really long time.
Okay, well, I'll take it.
And at the time, one or two people saw it, but it was on like very late at night and on a certain channel. But yes, I did host Rock. They flew me to Canada to do it, and it was awesome. Yeah, why do you have that? Have it on video?
I think I found the video, but I don't actually have the collection. I just wonder, like, when you're doing something like that, what is a video shoot like that? What is that like? I mean, is that an all-day thing? Is it fun? Does it pay well?
It paid very well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it paid very well. I was there. They flew me to Canada for 2 days, and it was like a full day with like a teleprompter and, clothes changes. And I had to read this time. And I remember in black leather pants, I think. And they wanted my hair a little darker, so they washed my hair with some weird tea. I don't know. It was weird.
Oh.
They didn't want me as platinum, so they wanted me to be like, yeah, it's different. But they paid theirs. I think it was like $15,000, but after my agent took whatever out of theirs. But it paid well. Yeah. It was cool too.
To hear.
And they were nice. Canadians are awesome. They're so nice.
Yes, that is true. Every Canadian I know has always been like the nicest person. Okay, so nowadays
Nice.
you do a lot of stand-up comedy. And how long have you been doing that now?
About 4 years.
About 4 years, okay. Well, I got to ask, how did you get started in that?
I had originally, in my 20s, auditioned for the Groundlings. And I got into...
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and with my audition, I got into the second level, and I was dating a guy who said that I wasn't funny, so I quit. And so it was kind of like it was like a bucket list thing, and then like 4 years ago, I just went, I'm gonna just give it another shot, and I started to take stand-up comedy classes, and after my second class, the guy was like, "You're ready," and I was like, "Get out of here!"
Wow.
Like, what? He was like, "Yeah, you're ready," and I was. Oh shit. I do it and it comes easy for me, but it's not something I love. Like if you sat down with another comedian and they told you they're doing comedy stories, it doesn't ring true for me like that. They say they did their thing and they were like, knew that was what they wanted to do forever. And like, it was their thing. Me, I've never felt that way about it. I've just been like, yeah, but it's something I tried and checked off the bucket list.
Yeah, very cool. That's I think that's a good way to approach it. I mean, do you feel like your background in the work in show business you did before comedy, like, gives you a level of confidence, or how does your background help you on stage or writing jokes or whatever you do?
It was really about selling tickets.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I moved up the ranks pretty quickly because people wanted to see me do comedy that knew me from other stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't please other comedians by any means, but because I was able to sell tickets, I was able to like get to, you know, opening for the headliner like quickly and do headlining pretty quickly, which is not considered cool to other comedians because they're like working it for years to get to a certain level. And so I was well received from comedies and stuff because I sold tickets, but you know, would I say I was the funniest comedian? No, by no means. Like I either killed it or I bombed or it was just like, yeah, whatever. But like I said, it takes a lot to offend me or to make me like get super affected over things. And I was just like that with that too. I was like, yeah, all right. You know, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it in stride, you know, don't worry about, like you were saying, the haters. I'll go right to my last question. I know you've been asked about this a million times, but I have a certain other angle to it. The most gut-wrenching allegation story to come out of your book, of course, is about what happened to Janie. He was sexually assaulted. There was that video or that audio recording of him that surfaced a couple years ago that seemed to confirm it. You've been very clear that you can't name who those people are, which makes a lot of sense because it didn't happen to you and because it puts you at risk. And I totally understand that, and I actually think that's the right move. But my only question on this is, because there are so many people who want to know, do you think there will ever be a scenario, be it someone else coming forward and saying something, maybe these guys just dying, you know, where you'll be protected and safe and able to share that part of the story? Or do you think this is something that it's really not appropriate for you to talk about?
It's really not appropriate for me to talk about. Also, it's hearsay for me because it's something he told me in private that I would really have no voice in the matter anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I don't foresee. I know that there's a lot of people that know about this because they're in the industry, but I'll just circle it back to the entertainment industry being sinister again.
Absolutely.
I'll just take it there. But no, do I get involved in any degree? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because
and that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the important what might get lost in people trying to track down the names is that, like, the important part of the story is that you said that this is something that happened. And that's important. You know, it's important to know because we need to be able to have these conversations. So I know we got to wrap up. So in short, I just want to applaud you for, you know, telling with no holds barred, you know, your truth in this book. I really like this book. I want to get your second book. What is the best way for fans to get your books?
Amazon usually. And like I said, the second book, I never got paid for that book. So I don't promote that one that much, but you're more than welcome to get it. Yeah, they're just.
I'll get a second hand. I won't go to the publisher for that one.
Okay. But yeah. And yeah, Amazon is usually the way to go.
Okay.
I think.
Well, Bobbie, this has been really enjoyable talking to you. I love the book. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
And I come on too, and I'm sorry it took me so long, but it was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember the big 4 things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Number 1, listen to the show. If you're hearing this now, that means you did this part already. Thank you. There is an infinite amount of content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means a great deal to me. Number 2, if you like what we did here, please recommend this show to family, friends, or anyone you know who's looking for a podcast, particularly about music. Share our links in Facebook groups, subreddits, and recommendation threads. Whatever you can do is highly appreciated on my end. Number 3, find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at PlayThatPodcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playthatpodcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/playthatrock'n'roll. Lots of great material like photos and vlogs on all 3 platforms, as Play That Rock and Roll is very much meant to be a content hub as well as a podcast. And finally, the big ask. Number 4, please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I know this part is a hassle, but it really does help the show a great deal. Not just because it affects the algorithm, but also because it gives me something I can point to when pitching this show to potential guests. The more social media followers and positive ratings the show has, the better chance I have for booking high-profile guests for interviews. So if you take a moment to give us even just a 5-star rating, you are actively giving us a tool to do bigger and better things here. But whatever the case, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great stories and music from the world of classic rock.